Well, hello and welcome to Financial Wellness During Retirement. My name is Amy Parton and I'm on the education team here at GreenPath Financial Wellness. Now, GreenPath is a nonprofit consumer credit counseling agency as well as a HUD-approved housing counseling agency, and we started in 1961. And just to share a little bit about us, GreenPath provides a variety of different services, including housing counseling, financial assessments, bankruptcy counseling, and the debt management program. We are financial wellness experts, and we talk to people every day about money choices they have made or are about to make. We help identify realistic options so that the best decision can be made based on an individual's priorities, values, and circumstance. Every counseling session starts with determining each individual's goals and ends with an action plan to reach those goals. So please feel free to check out our website at www.greenpath.org to learn more information about the services we provide. So we're really excited that you are joining us today, and hopefully your technology is working well. So if it's not, though, please go ahead and use the chat feature, and it's in the lower right-hand side of the screen, to send a message, and be sure to send it to all panelists. I'm going to be monitoring it throughout our presentation today to help troubleshoot. And also, throughout the webinar, if you have a question for our speaker, use that chat box there for this purpose as well. So I'm sure you found this box. So what I want to do, though, is check the technology on our end. So I'm just going to ask you, if you would, please use the chat box and send me or chat in the state you're calling from. Go ahead, use the chat box. Where are you calling from? And I want to just make sure that we are all set. So I see some folks are finding it here. I've got Nebraska. Everybody else finding it? There we go. There's a couple of more. All right. So we've got some Massachusetts, Missouri, Michigan, Oklahoma, welcome. Washington, D.C., New Jersey. So we're on the East Coast and Midwest. That's good. Although Oklahoma, I'm not sure Go Pokes. Okay, this is great. You guys have found it, and we are all set. So what I want to do now is we are thrilled to have Matt Bowden joining us today to share his expertise. And I'm going to give you a little bio on him. Now, Matt is a certified financial planner and making a career shift. After spending 9 years as a wholesaler with a national insurance brokerage firm, he's found his true passion to help individuals and families live their dreams through financial freedom. The main goal is to help people live a more balanced, organized, and simplified financial life so that they can spend more time on what cannot be delegated. So Matt's services, they include mapping out a way for clients to reach their financial goals, which can include, and is not limited to, risk management, customized investment portfolios, cash flow analysis, accumulation planning, deaccumulation planning, estate planning, debt management, qualified plan analysis, business succession plans, and tax planning. Boy, that's a lot. But at the heart of all of it is truly great service and an unparalleled client experience. That's what he provides. Now, Matt graduated with an MBA from Cleary University and also earned his CLU and CHFC through the American College. He joined the Financial Planning Association of Michigan in 2016 and now sits on the education and pro bono committees. Now, as if he doesn't have enough going on. In his spare time, Matt enjoys spending time with his wife, Andrea, their daughter, Nahi, right? Okay, and 2 Brittany Spaniels, Charlie and Barkley. They have fun with their friends in their home in Superior Township. Matt also likes to volunteer his time at therapeutic writing at the Huron Valley Humane Society. Matt and Andrea are expecting their first son in August and have been preparing for his arrival while they experience the challenges of raising a toddler. Wow, you got some stuff going on, Matt.
Yeah.
Well, with that, and you can see his contact information there on the screen, and he is actually here in the room with me. So at this point, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Matt.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Amy. I really appreciate you and GreenPath having me here today and allowing me to speak a little bit more on retirement and how to try and be financially fit, to retirement and most importantly through it, so you can kind of enjoy it. So as most people know, retirement is a time of change. There's all kinds of change. Not just not going to work every day anymore. That, of course, is probably the first change that we think of. It's been a part of your routine for 30 to 40 years. It's certainly going to be a new experience not doing that, but it's not the only thing that's going to be different, either personally or financially. On the personal side, retirement means making some important decisions about, namely, where you're going to live, whether you're going to continue to work, whether it's full-time or part-time. You might make a shift, do something different. And then also what you're going to do with your free time. You're going to have a lot more free time now, so what are you going to do with it? And then on the financial side, it means taking a hard look at, your living costs and the sources of income you can count on. So now that you're going to be in retirement, you're not going to have that paycheck anymore, so you fully retire. And, so where are you going to get some income? Where are those paychecks coming from? So the other thing is asking a critical question of where are your savings, will your savings last as long as you need it? Don't make sure you answer these questions are yes. We're going to talk about some financial basics and explore several of the key tools you'll need to make it through. Let's talk for a quick moment about the personal side of retirement planning. There's sometimes a tendency to concentrate more on those financial issues and not spend enough time thinking about why saving for retirement is so important. Remember, it's not just so you can pay your bills. It's so that you can also afford to do the things you've been looking forward to doing, those 30 to 40 years as you're working, now that you finally have time to do them. So, and that time's now, once you're retired. And of course, there's no rule that you have to make up your mind about where you will live or whether you're going to go on working before you're actually ready to make those choices. After all, many people, after they retire, they do stay in the same community and sometimes the same home where they've always lived. Or you could obviously take out an adventure, things that you wanted to do, maybe move to, I don't know about Florida anymore with all the hurricanes, but, somewhere else, maybe somewhere warm. And we got a lot of Midwest and East Coasters here. And being in Michigan, I can relate to that. So, one of the most important ways you can plan for retirement is to definitely think about what you're going to want to do with your free time. And then just do it. So as the old saying is, practice makes perfect. Just practice. Maybe start, if you're not quite retired yet, I would highly suggest you take some time and maybe use some of your paid time off or vacation time to practice what you want to be doing in retirement. So one thing, tend your garden. Gardening is a great metaphor for actually productive retirement. Even if your idea of a good time isn't pulling weeds or cutting a lawn, like other hobbies, gardening requires time and energy, but provides a real sense of accomplishment and a lot of pleasure as well. Another great thing to do is volunteer. Find something that you care about and do something about it. Just get involved. You can start painting, you can start writing. That'll liberate your creative side. Maybe you've been dealing with numbers your whole life, kind of like I have. Maybe something different on the creative side would be something very challenging and fulfilling for you. Also, get a part-time job in a new field, something that might fascinate you. Once again, maybe you were in a really good paying job and you really liked it, and it's paying the bills, helped you get to retirement, but now you really want to do something that you're going to really like to do and feel a little more accomplished with it. So now's the time to think about it. And then, of course, there's always travel. I know a lot of people dream or talk about traveling to places you've always wanted to go. You might want to, as I mentioned before, move somewhere new, somewhere warmer, a place you've always really liked. Well, now's the time to really start researching what the actual costs are going to be to live there. Think about, as this slide says, practice makes perfect. Try to go there at different times of the year, and take maybe a week at a time in those different times of the year or those different locations within a certain area, and don't really be a tourist. Pretend that you're kind of a resident, and go through a daily routine of what it would be like, and if that's something that's going to be of interest to you, something you're going to want to make that big change. Now, don't feel that you have to do it all today. These are big steps, obviously. So, you need to work your way through retirement and get into that lifestyle that you want. Giving up your career, your daily work, weekly paychecks, it's going to be a big shock in itself. So you don't want to, have to be doing that and then the next day selling your house, all your possessions, leaving your friends that you've made over those 30, 40 years, and then travel the country, in an RV or set up shop somewhere else, it's 2,000 miles away. The point is to, again, practice the retirement before you actually do it. So talk about it with who you're going to spend it with, namely your spouse or whoever else will be there. Spend time thinking about the what ifs as you kind of figure out the many possibilities that there are. It really is going to be an exciting time of your life. It's going to be a big adventure, but it's also the next big challenge and a lot of unknowns. So you really want to make sure you practice and think about it and research before you just jump into it.
Another stage, huh? For sure.
That's right. Now let's just talk another minute here about some facts regarding retirement. Some of the personal issues that you have to be prepared for. After all, this isn't your parents' retirement in a sense. Today, a lot of people who retire are a little more dependent on their personal savings and investments to fund their retirement than their parents or even their grandparents were. There's a lot fewer defined benefit pensions that promise income for your lifetime, sometimes your spouse's lifetime as well. You can think of, there's been a lot of pension freezes at a lot of different, like here in Michigan, the big three, they've cut back or froze it. Even I think just at the start of this year or last year, the teachers union, any new teachers that are coming in are actually not getting pensions. They're going to have to go also to a 403B, which is 401K, defined contribution type plan. So they're going to have to save on their own too. So that's not even going to be there for teachers. So it's just different. It doesn't necessarily have to be bad, but it's just different. You also consider the future role of Social Security. It is uncertain. It's unrealistic to expect it to play a big role in your retirement. It's definitely, I don't think it's going to go away by any means, especially if you're nearing retirement now. I really believe that that'll still be there for you, the full benefit. But for somebody like my age, I can probably guess that it's not going to be a full benefit. So just to take that into account, I think it'll still be there. But there needs to be a lot more changes to it, the system. So that's something we'll have to see what happens. Another thing is we're spending more years working. The age of retirement is heading up. There's many more people in their late 60s working today than there were in the 80s and 90s. So that's another thing, just getting up in age and working longer is also providing a little bit more security for you, trying to build up those savings, that you have to rely on to get you through retirement is one thing. And, getting you through retirement is going to be even longer now. We're living longer. Life expectancy is about 78.1 years. So if you're a man retiring around 65, you can expect to live another 17 years. And if you're a woman, it's going to be another 20 years. And that's on average. So that's 50% of people. So over that, 50%, are going to live longer. So you're looking at a pretty long time to be able to not have a paycheck anymore. And if you're planning to retire before 65, that of course means you're going to have even more years to think about funding without a paycheck from an employer. So there's still a lot of things we're also learning about retirement. You need to plan not just for how much money you're going to need, but also for the quality of life that you're going to look for. When parents were working, more so it was kind of in factories or manufacturing jobs a while ago. They were a lot more physical. So when they were getting to retirement, they were looking forward to a lot of just relaxation. I'm just going to golf and I'm going to sit on the couch. That's not really the case today. A lot of the industries have kind of shifted into more of, there's a lot more office workers, we kind of sit around at a desk and stare at a computer screen all day, and, you want to be able to be active when you're older and do something different. So just to plan for the quality of life that you want as well, it's going to be a little bit different. So you're hoping too with, you're going to live longer, so you're hoping you're going to be healthier longer than your parents were, so that's something to plan on. Another thing to think about is if you do want to work or you feel you need the money, there's a number of different ways you may want to go about it. And remember, we're not necessarily making a career commitment again, but you can rethink your decision to work or the job you're doing at any time. Employers are often delighted to have older workers, often for their expertise and experience to bring to the table. You don't hear that a lot in the news, but there are a lot of employers that do value that. So some of the things you might think about is continuing to work with your former employer. You can talk about a reduced schedule or maybe on a consulting basis to do some part-time work there. There's also, and I do need to mention, in some states, if you've been a public sector employee, you might need to take some time off before you can actually earn a salary and collect the pension there too, but, you'd have to work with your HR director on that, just as a caveat. Another thing is this might be a time, instead of working at the same company doing consulting work or part-time work, this might be a time to switch to a new area of interest. You might have professional skills that transfer to the classrooms. Maybe you want to be a teacher part-time at a university or something. You may also want to find a way to turn in your hobby into a money-making opportunity. So, if you're good at woodworking, how do you sell your products? I know a lot now is people who make T-shirts actually who make a lot of money off of what I've been reading. So just a lot of different things that you can think about. And then also, as you mentioned before, you might want to volunteer your time. Obviously, that's not going to be a financial reward. So if you're looking for money, that's not a place to do it. But it might also be the most satisfying thing you do. The list of opportunities are endless. For example, I do currently volunteer at therapeutic riding, as Amy mentioned, and it's horseback riding for children and adults with disabilities, and it's really rewarding to see how happy they are to get on that horse every week and take their hour, stroll around with the horse. So it's something that's, that I like doing at the end of my time, and it's very rewarding even though you don't get paid for it. So, a lot of those jobs are local. That's volunteering too, as mine in its case, it's in Ann Arbor, but there's also national organizations you can look to contact, things like the Peace Corps. But keep in mind though, if you are earning an income while you are on Social Security, and you haven't reached what Social Security calls your full retirement age, which currently if you're born in between 1943 and 1954, it's 66, and then it kind of steps up from there for each year after. There's a limit on the amount you can earn each month and still qualify for your full benefit, so it's something else you have to keep in mind too. So there's a lot of different caveats with anything that has to do with the government. So now, since we're talking about working after you retire, this is a good way to transition from the personal aspects of living in retirement to the financial aspects. So we're going to talk about basically how much money you're going to need to live comfortably after you stop working full-time and where that money is going to come from. We'll start by spending a few minutes here thinking about what living in retirement is actually going to cost. So there's a tendency to anticipate that you're going to be spending less in retirement than when you were working. In some ways, it possibly is true. However, there's some things that you're going to want to have to think about, too, that might make it not less expensive. So even though you're likely to have fewer or no job-related costs, depending on whether or not you decide to keep working and go part-time, there's also going to be your mortgage will probably be paid off. Hopefully your kids are growing and financially independent. But on the other hand, there's other expenses that could be higher. Now that we're living longer, healthcare costs are going to be a lot higher. Home maintenance, utilities, real estate taxes don't go away even if your mortgage does. And then, of course, there's always the fun stuff. Now you got to think about, what hobbies you're going to do, all that traveling. So, travel does cost quite a bit of money. If you do it often enough, it's going to add up quickly. And whatever other leisure costs there are. Just for example, there's not a lot of $1 movies left anymore to go to, even if you can go to one on a weekday afternoon. And now that you're in retirement, every day, the way I think about it is kind of every day is like a Saturday or Sunday. So you got a lot of free time to do what you want to do. And I know when I'm, you know, it's the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, I'm more inclined to spend money because I'm not working or doing, you know, anything else. I'm trying to do what I like to have fun, and it usually costs money. So there are some guidelines, though, that we can follow to help you estimate what you'll be spending. So kind of rule of thumb of what you'll need will be about 75% up to 100% of your last year pre-retirement income to maintain the lifestyle that you're going to want to lead and do the things you've been looking forward to do. And while you may be less active later in retirement, healthcare costs do tend to escalate. So let's take a look at how these numbers kind of work out. Here's just one example. You know, in the final year before you retire, your income, we'll say it's $65,000. So if you're estimating you need 75% of that in the first year after you're retired, you're going to need $48,750. And just to put that into perspective, as of 2016, the maximum individual Social Security benefit is only $31,668. So you're about $17,000 short. So Social Security is not going to be able to cover that for you. And now if you're estimating, though, that you need even more money, let's say you want more money to spend, you know, let's go 90% of your pre-retirement income. So of that $65,000, you're going to be needing $58,500 for the first year. You know, and that's not really the end of the story. Actually, in each subsequent year, you're going to have to increase that amount with inflation, because everything does inflate the costs, just of general goods, usually by the Consumer Price Index. As of 2016, that was just at 2.1%, which was actually a lot lower than the long-term average of 3.1%. So there's a lot of consensus that we've been at a low inflation point for a long time. So if you think that it is kind of at the bottom and it's going to go back up, which, you know, I do think it's going to, and a lot of other people do too, you know, you're going to have to estimate if you're retiring now that you're going to have to pay more than inflation for the cost of goods. So you're going to need a little bit more income each year. So something to think about. Now we just want to go over kind of the sources of income, where they can come from. So, you know, because estimating your income is just the first step. The bigger issue is, where's that money going to come from? For most of us, there's 5 primary sources. So there's withdrawals from your retirement savings plans, there's Social Security, there's interest, dividends, and other investment income, there's part-time work, there's investment principal. And then if you do actually are lucky enough to have an employer-paid pension, that's a 6th source of income as well. Now, as you're going through retirement, you're going to want to try to take a look at how you're investing your savings. So this slide is just kind of going over, you know, you have these income sources to draw on when you retire. The earlier you would start them, the better, obviously, just because of compound interest. But now as you're getting closer to retirement, you're going to want to gradually change your emphasis from generating investment growth to producing investment income. You know, when you're in your 30s, you could take an aggressive approach to this investing. You know, you could concentrate more on stock mutual funds, just because they were historically the ones, and they still are, that produce the strongest returns, but they're also the most volatile, which means value can change quickly, which also means that now that you're closer to retirement, you don't want to take as big of a risk. And it depends on everybody's situation, whether or not you have stock mutual funds, things like that, just depending on your risk tolerance and where you're at, how much your income you're going to need, and a bunch of different factors. But just in general, these are kind of just a quick guideline for you. So, you know, stocks and stock mutual funds don't really produce income. They produce long-term growth. So next, you know, once you got to your 40s, you could probably still be fairly aggressive with investments. Retirement still remain a long ways away for you, most likely. But you want to invest an increasing larger percentage of your income, perhaps 15% or more, into your retirement accounts. And your income is usually increasing at this time as you're growing in your career. So you can afford to invest more without feeling pinched. And then, you know, as you got to your 50s, you want to begin to be a little more cautious with your investments. So you want to gradually start shifting some of your equity to your higher rated bonds and other fixed income investments. You know, you're looking at CDs, things like that. And then during this period too, you know, a lot of people don't take into account sometimes you might be getting some inheritances. So taking a look at that and making sure that you know what's coming down the pipeline for you too is a great way to know how much you're going to need or what you're going to have coming up in retirement. Another thing we need to think about too, obviously healthcare retirement is a big issue, including dental and vision. A lot of people don't think about that because Medicare typically doesn't cover those costs, so that's another cost to think about when you're going to retirement. And then also long-term care insurance. You know, in your 50s is kind of where you want to get it, 50s to 60s. You know, insurance premiums are going to drastically go up after that. And the long-term care is going to be great because, you know, Medicare and or Medicaid really don't cover that. You know, it's very minimal. So another big, huge expense that could dry you up real quickly in retirement that you want to make sure you safeguard against to think about. But now once you're here in your 60s and you know, this is usually the decade everybody thinks about retiring. You want to be emphasizing investment income. You want to be able to put in your money. You're going to want to still put some money, as I mentioned, into stock funds just for the growth aspect, but probably not as much anymore. And as I said, it's an individual case-by-case basis on what you want to do. But you want to make sure that you're putting a lot more into conservative investments, you know, bonds, cash, CDs, things like that, that generate a lot more income and not just growth. But we do need some growth because of, as we mentioned before, 20 to 30 years in retirement is a long time. So you want to make sure that you're keeping up with inflation that's also supposed to go up over time. So once you actually do get to retire, you know, it's time to start spending. You know, you've been working so hard to accumulate this over 30 to 40 years. You want to make sure that you can spend it in a way that you want. So you're also going to want to adjust your estate plan to reflect changes to your intentions and your assets as you go along. You know, a lot of people haven't looked at it for a long time, probably since their kids were born, if they've even looked at it at all. So definitely update that as you're going into retirement, and you know, I'd suggest at least once every 5 years as a guideline. So that should definitely keep you plenty busy. This next slide is just kind of going over the different kind of retirement savings vehicles. You know, what options do you have for income in retirement? So typically, people think about employer-sponsored retirement plans such as 401ks, 403bs, and things like that. Those allow you to automatically deduct money from your paycheck. Your employer did it automatically, usually on a pre-tax basis while you're working. But there's other options to think about too. So, you know, you might have been putting some of your income into retirement, such as a pre-tax IRA or other after-tax choices such as Roth IRAs, 401ks, or 403bs. But there's also other after-tax choices such as cash value life insurance, annuities, and also just regular taxable investment portfolios that a lot of people don't think about that can be there for your retirement income. So just making sure that you're thinking about all the pots of money that you have to draw from retirement will help you be able to diversify the kind of income you can take. So a big thing in retirement is when you have those diversified pots of money, you know, kind of what order do you want to take them from? So, you know, each person is different again, but it's kind of called tax bracket diversification. So, you know, and we'll get into that in just a second here, because now we're going to talk about the tax-deferred plans. You know, so you're talking about your 401ks, your you know, pre-tax 401ks, 403bs, things like that. And now these were great, obviously, you know, as you were saving, taking it right out of your paycheck, and it was also taking it out of your taxable income. So it reduced your tax exposure, which is great while you're working. But now once you're retired and you need to start drawing it down for retirement income, you know, Uncle Sam's going to want his cut right now. So he's now going to take his tax from you as you take it out. So it comes out as ordinary income. So to do that, as I said, tax bracket diversification kind of plays into this as we'll go through it on the next slide too. But, you know, Uncle Sam's going to take his tax out of this because it was pre-tax. It was never taxed. So your tax-deferred plans are now going to be taxed as you start taking out money in retirement. And as it says, you know, all earnings are taxed at your regular rate at withdrawal. If they were tax-deferred as in traditional 401ks, 403bs, traditional IRAs, they're taxed at your regular rate at withdrawal. There are different withdrawal rules that apply, but they do vary. If you start taking out before you're 59 and a half, you may be penalized depending on the plan. And once you get to 70 and a half, withdrawals are required, except for non-qualified deferred annuities. So those are rules to keep keep in the back of your head. In addition to putting money into the traditional tax-deferred retirement savings accounts we've been talking about, you can also put them into Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, Roth 403bs, as we mentioned. And they have a number of things in common, such as contribution limits and potential penalties for withdrawal earnings before you turn 59 and a half. But let's also take a look at the way they do differ from the traditional 401ks, 403bs, and IRAs. The traditional ones, you put it in pre-tax, and then the so-called Roth ones, you put it in after tax, so you get taxed up front. So instead of lowering your taxable income, your income stays the same in the year that you contribute, and you get a tax on it. So whatever your regular rate is today when you put the money in, you get taxed. What's nice is along with traditional accounts that are tax deferred, a Roth account is also tax deferred, but then on the back end, the money will come out tax free, and that's including the earnings that accumulate in there. Now, there's a couple caveats that you have to make sure that you keep the account at least from the first time you put a contribution in. It has to be in effect for 5 years to be able to do that, and there's a couple other rules with that. So, but that's nice that it comes out tax free. So just for example, if you withdrew $5,000 from a traditional account when you turn 65, if you were in the highest federal tax bracket, you could owe as much as $1,750 in federal income tax. But if the money came out of the Roth account, your tax bill is going to be $0. So that's a huge, powerful thing to look at in retirement. When you're looking at where's my income coming from, and then if I'm taking money out, do I have to pay those in? So it's a great way to diversify how much tax you're going to pay. Now, there's another area, too, that are tax-free plans. That also includes Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, and 403bs. But they're, well, I kind of went over this already. But so basically, this is you contribute your after-tax income. Your tax-free withdrawals, as long as you follow the rules, you have to be at least 59 and a half. The account has to be open for 5 years with the first deposit. One of the differences, though, that I didn't mention before is, along with the traditional plans that require you to take out distributions after you hit 70 and a half, Roths do not. So they come out tax-free, and you don't actually have to use it, take out withdrawals after 70 and a half if you don't need it, which is really nice. And then another thing that's often overlooked is cash value life insurance. So a lot of people think of life insurance obviously for death benefit and family protection, but another thing that it has some great triple tax features to it. So that death benefit is tax-free. And even though you have to pay taxes when you put your premiums in, so it's going to be after-tax money for your premium, the same thing happens like with the Roth, is that it grows, the cash value in there will grow tax-deferred. And then actually if it's structured correctly and you take distributions out correctly, those distributions will be totally tax-free as well. And one of the nice things about cash value life insurance is that with Roth IRAs, there are contribution limits you can put in. Same as IRAs, $5,500 if you're under age 50, and then you do the catch-up $6,500 if you're over that age. But with life insurance, there's no contribution limit. So you can put as much money as you want in there, and you can structure it to where you can minimize the death benefit, which minimizes the cost of insurance, to try and grow the cash as powerfully as you can. Now, it doesn't make sense for everybody in every situation, just because, first and foremost, you need to have a death benefit need for it to protect an income, first and foremost. But it might make sense in some people's situations to help, once again, diversify where their income is going to be coming from in retirement. It's another tax-free or tax-advantage place to have income coming out to you, so you don't have to pay Uncle Sam on top of withdrawal. And then, of course, with life insurance, too, there's surrender charges that do apply within, typically the first 10 years. So, obviously, if you needed the money right away, which you could take it out, so there's no technically IRS penalty, but there would be a surrender charge, which just, solidifies it as a long-term investment strategy and tool. And so another thing that people don't think about as much as well is just regular taxable investments. So kind of brokerage accounts. You're definitely going to want to take advantage, first and foremost, of tax-deferred and tax-free retirement savings plans that you're eligible for. You're going to want to definitely make sure through your employer, you would want to make sure you're contributing at least up to their match to make sure you're getting that free money from the employer, first and foremost. But also going to want to consider building your taxable accounts as another way to build up the income that you're going to need in retirement. These do take a back seat, but there are some real advantages. There's no contribution limits or withdrawal rules. You're free to make any investments you'd like. They offer another excellent way to diversify your portfolio, and they provide an additional income option, including income that you might need before you're 59 and a half. There's no penalty on when you can withdraw. You can put it in, take it out as much as you want, and so that's why you can take advantage of any kind of investment opportunities that may come up with these kind of accounts. Another great thing is, depending on what investments you pick, there's a lot of good dividend earning options, long-term capital gains. When you take things out, are taxed at a much lower rate than your regular income tax rate. Currently, there's a 20% capital gains tax rate if you're in the highest tax bracket, 39.6%. And then there's 15% capital gains tax rate if you're in tax brackets from 25 to 35%. And then actually 0% if you can keep your tax bracket in between 10 and 15% currently, which is another reason why when you're in retirement, you want to make sure that you have different pots of money to draw from, because if you've taken all your money out of a qualified account, meaning that you're going to get taxed on all of it as ordinary income, that's going to shoot your tax bracket up real high or real fast. So you want to hopefully have other tax-free or tax-advantaged options to use to try and keep your tax bracket down. That's kind of the tax bracket diversification strategy. And that'll help with capital gains taxes too. So one big thing that you want to make sure you do is, once you get to retirement, you want to review your allocation at least annually. Your retirement portfolio allocation is basically the way you split your assets among stocks, stock funds, bonds, bond funds, cash, other types of investments, annuities, cash value life insurance, and what allocation is right for you at any given time, maybe different than what it was last year or 5 years ago. Definitely it might be different from when you started working or started investing your plan. Maybe you haven't looked at it in a while. So you need to have an allocation that's there to meet your goals within the time horizons you have and with the level of risk that you're comfortable taking. So what you really want to do is just kind of look at the big picture. You want to evaluate how your tax-deferred, tax-free, and taxable accounts are invested. You're going to want to start gradually shifting to a more conservative portfolio mix over time, but make sure that you keep some growth opportunities in your mix to make sure that you're keeping up with inflation as well. You want to make sure you move some money into more income-producing investments. So you're looking at bonds, certain mutual funds, things of that nature. And then, again, continue investing for some growth to make sure you guys keep up with inflation. Then you're going to want to really create a retirement income strategy. There's many ways to take retirement income, but you need a strategy that works for you. It's smart to seek some professional advice from an experienced financial planner who can explain the pros and cons of various approaches and who can help you decide which one to adopt. So here's one strategy that works for many people, but it might not work for everybody. Spend rather than reinvest the dividends and interest that you're going to earn in your taxable investments. Then you want to think about taking required withdrawals from your employer plans and IRAs. Again, most employer plans require you to start taking income when you retire. To postpone the withdrawals, you have to roll over the plan assets to a traditional IRA. Then you have until you reach age 70 and a half to start withdrawing. That's the IRS. They force you to take those out. Or you could convert it to a Roth IRA where withdrawals aren't required. However, though, if you convert to a Roth IRA, you're going to have to pay taxes at that point on the whole amount that you convert. You could also set a total annual withdrawal rate from your combined retirement assets. So, right around 4% in the first year is the level most professionals would recommend. You've got to increase the withdrawal annually by the rate of inflation. And then if necessary, you can begin to sell your investment principal to meet income needs as well. But hopefully you can just live off of any kind of income that your principal is making. Something that doesn't change no matter what life stage you're in, whether pre-retirement, just starting out, or in retirement, is you want to make sure that you have a need for an emergency fund, and that need is always there, so you want to make sure that you have one. You need that money that's readily available in case of any kind of unexpected expense or market downturns or any kind of event that might happen in your life to make sure you can pay for it. You want to make sure your emergency account is in savings and cash equivalent accounts, so things like short-term U.S. Treasury bills, CDs, money market funds. That way, if you need the money, you're not going to be exposed to potential loss in value during a market downturn or potential penalties if you have to withdraw early from your employer plan, things like that, and taxes as well. And so as you approach retirement, you want to make sure that you have enough in the emergency fund to cover living expenses for a year or two, rather than 3 to 6 months. It's generally advised while you're working because, you know, you don't have that income from an employer anymore. So you want to make sure that you have a little bit more of a cushion for any kind of a big emergency that happens in retirement. Now, we discussed these different ways to replace your paycheck, live financially free in retirement. You know, want to shift our focus a little bit more to avoiding some pitfalls of identity theft and scams that could derail our lives in retirement. And we want to talk about this because studies have shown that identity theft is most prevalent for people between ages of 40 and 60. So you want to be on the lookout during this time when you're pretty pre-retirement, ready to go, and then once you get into retirement, that's where a lot of the scams, they target those people. So some of the best ways to avoid identity theft, I think, are just being prudent about every day about making sure you're not unintentionally sharing vital information and with people you don't trust. You know, just recognize the scams. If things don't seem logical or right to you, just trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, seems too good to be true, it most likely is. You know, there's an old saying, and there's a reason why it's an old saying. So, you know, you want to make sure you're carefully vetting any and all types of emails, phone calls, any kind of proposals that are made to you to see if they pass so-called sniff test. And then what I like to do, too, is if I see something kind of fishy, it seems, you know, is this right? I always try to Google it, and then I would go to, you know, somebody is telling me to send money to them. I work at this place. I would go and actually just Google the place and make sure that it's a real place and go onto their website, not click on any links in any emails. So do that first. Make sure you're double checking and make sure everything's pretty legit. And also, you should never give out your personal information over the phone or by email to anyone that you don't know or don't trust. The next thing is kind of 10 things that you need to leave at home. You know, some of these things are, you know, kind of common sense or things you probably knew about, but maybe some of them aren't. So a lot of these things can be compromised by an identity thief these days. Your Social Security card definitely should leave that at home. You probably don't need multiple credit cards, so take 1 or 2 main ones that you use. Any kind of gift cards or certificates that might have your information on it, only take it when you're going to use it. Spare keys, you don't want to, you know, lose both sets of keys. That would be, you know, or unknowingly lose the spare keys and not, you know that you lost them. Here's one that I didn't even think of at first, USB drives. So a lot of time you have personal information that you might want to, you're taking it there, taking it to someone's house, or while you're working, you have to take it to work. You know, just be real careful because there's a lot of sensitive information on that. A lot of identity thieves aren't actually physically going to steal your identity anymore. It's a lot of electronic stuff. So that goes along with the password cheat sheet. Make sure you don't carry that around with you. Store it in a safe place at home. If it's on paper, if it's electronic, you know, on your phone or something, try and use a little bit more, you know, 2-factor authorization to get onto your phone, or something that changes your password automatically for you. You know, leave your checks at home unless you absolutely have to use one. Make sure you store your receipts, don't lose them. Those have some sensitive information on it, such as if you use a credit card with them. Obviously, your passports, a lot of sensitive information there. And business cards, too, because you don't really want people knowing where you work or vital information like that. That has information on it. As I mentioned before, using 2-factor authorization on your phone and important email online logins to make sure that you're ensuring you get notified again after you sign into something is a good way to do it. So a lot of times it sends it to your phone, code that you have to enter back into the computer. And then, of course, if you lose your phone, you want to make sure you have additional password, fingerprint, you know, facial ID recognition now on phones to make sure that it's you that's getting into the phone, or tablets or anything else. In case you lose it or it's stolen, a lot of times these have a ton of personal information saved on. So now, I just want to talk about some ways to avoid scams. So here's just a quick acronym on how to remember to avoid some scams. And the acronym is actually scam. So the S is just be stingy when it comes to giving out your personal information. Make sure the person requesting the information is on a need-to-know basis. For example, someone who claims to be calling from a bank doesn't need to know your maiden's name if it's already on file with the bank. C is check. Check financial information periodically. If you get hard copy credit card, bank statements mailed to you, keep those documents in a safe, secure location. Be very skeptical if the institution missed a month, because they usually don't. Identity thieves do try to change the address and accounts. They try to do that so they can keep their actions hidden from you as long as possible. I also actually go online and check my accounts, once every other day kind of thing, just to make sure everything looks good. And A would be ask for a copy of your credit report. This report shows bank financial accounts your name and may help provide evidence if someone has used your name to open another account. You can obtain reports. You can contact the 3 major credit bureaus, Equifax, which has a big data breach, of course, Experian or TransUnion. M is maintain. You want to maintain good records of your financial accounts, your obligations. It's recommended you keep hard copies or electronic versions of monthly bank and credit card statements. You want to have easy access to this information. Makes it easier to dispute a transaction, especially if your signature has been forged. So again, just always be prudent with your personal belongings, and especially your electronic files and your whole electronic life, even social media. So it's a much bigger place now online electronically for thieves to strike than ever before, and it's just only going to get greater and greater. So keeping not only your doors locked and your windows shut, you got to make sure you have your electronic doors and windows, so to speak, shut and locked.
And locked.
Just a few other things to consider here. As you approach retirement or are in retirement, you should be thinking about how you're going to pay for long-term care, as I mentioned before. Long-term care insurance policy is an alternative to help you pay for some custodian care that you're going to need as you age, or you might need as you age. Make sure that you have a will so that all your assets are distributed to the people and the institutions that are very important to you. You're going to need a living will and a power of attorney for health care and a durable power of attorney for financials to help ensure that your end-of-life wishes are followed. Along with that, that's included in creating an estate plan, and or updating the one that you made earlier. Because if you don't have a plan, so if you don't have a will that lays out what you want to do, I guarantee you the state that you live in has a plan for you, and it's probably not going to be what you would like to happen, and it's definitely not going to be what your family wants to happen. So make sure that you have it so you can keep the control. Another thing that an estate plan helps minimize, too, is if you're subject to any kind of federal state taxes or any state inheritance taxes that your heirs may have to deal with. So it's a good idea to work with an experienced financial planner who can help take these important steps. You can definitely find a financial planner through the Financial Planning Association's Financial Planner Search Service called Planner Search. You can also learn more about saving for retirement on the FPA website too, which is on this next page here. So fpanet.org. There's the plannersearch.org as well. So just want to take time to thank everybody for being on the call with me. I really appreciate talking with you today and your attentiveness. Hopefully I've helped you learn a little something as you approach retirement or in it. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Sure. Let's go ahead and open this up now for any questions. Use the chat feature. I know we talked about quite a bit, and we are recording this, and we'll have this up on our website probably in about a week. So you can kind of look for that if you want to listen to it again. But we are, Matt has graciously said we can go ahead and take some questions. Earlier, I had a question about TSP, a thrift savings plan. I'm not sure, I didn't understand if there was a question or if it was just another form of income that people have. If they, and well, for those of who are not familiar with the TSP.
Yeah, so, thrift savings plans are defined contribution plans for United States Civil Service employees and retirees, as well as members of the uniformed services, So as such, it's, it's a little bit different than a 401k or 403b, but it's very similar. There's just certain different rules and regulations that go with it, but as such, it's going to be on, the onus is on you to make those contributions, and then, as the money comes out, you're going to be taxed on that as well. So
yeah. Perfect. And you know what I'm going to do now is we are going to sign out, but we're going to stay on. I shouldn't say sign out, but I am going to say that if you need to get back to work or whatever, please feel free. I want to thank our guest speaker, Matt, for joining us today to share this important information about retirement. He can be reached at 248-827-1010, and his email is there as well, mbowden at CIGCAPITAL advisors.com. Now, what I wanted to also say is, again, check out our website, greenpath.org, for more information about GreenPath and education materials and tools that we have on there. You're welcome to schedule a free phone appointment with one of our experts as well. Our next webinar is going to be on October 4th, and it is titled, are you ready, Identity Theft. So we are going to go over some of the basics of identity theft, but more specifically, we're going to bring you whatever the information is up to date at that point about the Equifax breach. I know that's on everybody's mind. I know my information was compromised. Putting some freezes on is important. So hope to see you then. And like I said, we are going to stay on and answer any specific questions. But for those of you who are dropping off, thank you so much, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks. And thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Thanks, everybody.